As the world gears up for the inauguration of Donald Trump back into the Oval Office, what does the Trump presidency mean for India's IT, tech and startup ecosystem? Issues like H1-B visas, flow of investment for startups, ease of business, on top of minds for the businesses that drive the economy, especially in cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad and Chennai in the south, which have a very, very strong US connect. Well, what to expect? Joining me this evening, a fascinating panel of voices from the VC and startup ecosystem in Bengaluru. Naganan Doraiswamy, Venkrishnan, both US citizens, close ties to the US. Shrikant Iyer, CEO of Homelane as well. Thanks to all three of you for joining me here this evening. But before I get to the three of you, let me also go across first to Jessica Stone of the Voice of America, who is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Jessica, thanks very much for joining us as the world is set for that inauguration. The H1-B visa conversation is being very closely watched here in India. It's one where President Trump has to balance between the tech voices like Musk and the MAGA voices like Bannon.
Very true. And, you know, this whole immigration debate is one where polling suggests that Americans do support high-skilled immigration into this country, but do not support people coming here without the proper paperwork and without waiting in the proper lines. And so that balancing act, in order to be true to the American people who elected him, is really going to be what is the value that these immigrants bring to the American labor force? Is it ingenuity? Is it innovation? Is it manual labor? And how is everyone getting here? You know, this H1-B conversation has long been had between the U.S. and India. And I recall when Prime Minister Modi came last year for the state dinner event, they did expand some H1-B visas. But it's a hard argument to make and expand those quotas. Not a hard argument to make, I should say, but it is difficult to go through that rulemaking process and expand the quotas. Having said that, I think there is buy-in, particularly in light of what's going on with the Chinese economy and the pressures that are likely to take place with tariffs and with the influx of Chinese goods here in the United States, to expand the immigration policy towards H1-B visa holders. We'll have to see exactly when that happens. We don't anticipate H1-B visas to be touched today with the executive orders coming out of the Trump White House, but we do expect a lot of immigration executive orders, particularly pertaining to the safety at the southern border and the asylum system that we have here in the United States.
That's right. The priorities of Washington, D.C. very different from the priorities of Bengaluru. But very quickly, before I let you go, all set for that big inauguration there?
All set, but you wouldn't know it. It's as quiet as a mouse here in Washington. Outside the Capitol, you can see back behind me the American flags on the West Front Capitol. That is where all of it was due to take place this morning at around 11 o'clock with the swearing in of Vice President J.D. Vance and President Donald Trump. It is, in fact, going to be under that dome behind me instead, so much quieter on the outside, and no real place for people to watch the proceedings, except for at the Capitol Arena, which is a couple of miles west of here in Chinatown. Right. That is where people can have a viewing party, or in their hotel room, or at a local bar or pub, but certainly not the kinds of numbers we expected to see on the National Mall. 250,000 people have tickets to this event, and they will not be able to use them.
Nice blue skies, clear blue skies behind you. We can see there. Thanks very much, Jessica Stone, for those thoughts there from Washington, D.C. We'll try and come back to you later when the action picks up there. But going back to my panel here this evening, Naganan Doraiswamy, Venkrishnan and Shrikant Iyer. Nag, you've spent many years in the US yourself. You, Venk, are people who went on H1-B visas. Is there still a bit of worry and concern over how this is going to play out? Or over the last month, the kind of voices you've heard, does it give you more certainty on the road ahead?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of speculation. So it's hard to say which way it's going to go, because on one side, they have said anybody graduating with a master's should get a state H1. On the other side, they're saying H1 should be stopped. And then there's a lot of chaos inside the administration itself. So I don't expect day one too many changes to your previous speaker's point. But you know, it will be an interesting watch. I think there will be some upheaval in this space, but I'm hoping overall, you know that immigration is fairly important to the US. So I think you will see H1Bs being issued to the right people. In what form, shape, I think time will tell. So we're so close. We'll wait for a couple of hours to see if there's any executive orders that will be passed. If it is, we'll watch what it is. Otherwise, I think it will be a process because these things have been discussed in the Senate and the House for long periods of time. So I would rather say let's wait and watch to see what happens.
Right. Shrikant Iyer, let's not just restrict the conversation to H1B. What would you be the other areas of concerns? You had spoken to us earlier when after President Trump was president-elect and he won that election. Over the last month, the kind of indications you've been picking up, what do you think it's going to do largely for the startup ecosystem in India?
So I believe that overall, it's going to be positive for the startup ecosystem in India because Trump is pro tech. He's got the right kind of advisors who are also pro tech, and I think overall he's going to be positive. But having said that, I think there are going to be two, three implications in my opinion. One is he's going to set tariffs right. He's come on a plank where he has said that the tariffs are not okay with many countries, that includes India. Uh, I think he'll probably take it up from the descending order of where it's not right, which I think would be Canada, Mexico, and China, where they have the maximum imbalance. And India would probably be much lower in this one. So the bad news is, yeah, he's definitely going to try and set it right. The good news is it's not going to happen in a hurry because there are bigger problems that he has to deal with initially. I think IT, if you see the stocks from when he got elected and now, it's actually gone up by about 8-9% in the index BSE. And that's a good indication, despite the fact that everybody knows H1B is going to be an issue. I believe personally that he's actually going to go a little more conservative because, again, that's on the plank on which he's gotten elected. I don't know whether he can take the risk of actually becoming more aggressive on giving H1Bs because the plank has been on a conservative plank that he's gotten elected. So these are a few of the thoughts that I think are going to play out over the next few months.
Yeah, you're making an important point there, but as you're making that point, we have those live pictures coming in from Washington D.C. just for the benefit of our viewers. There, that's President Trump going into a church there. Venk, you've followed the U.S. very closely. Quickly, what would be your key areas of focus in the first 1 month of the Trump presidency? And I don't want the view from Washington, D.C. or Silicon Valley, but the view from Bengaluru, Namma Uru.
Yeah, I think, I kind of agree with Naga. I think even though there is so much of talk about H1B visas, but I think if history is any judge, right, I've seen this debate about H1B right from the early 90s, right, where people talk. But I think it has been always been positive for India, especially because of the fact that India produces the maximum number of STEM graduates, right, in the world, and even the H1B visa, we use them the fastest, and we are the largest user of that. So I think, and the fact that Trump is a businessman at heart, right, and he is going to do what is good for the business, and H1B graduates or H1B visa holders have really contributed positively to the US economy if you look at history. So I think even Trump made a statement saying that he has used H1B visas, even though there was a debate on that. So I think I feel it's very positive because from a technical point of view, we produce the largest number of technology people. And I think every industry, if you look at any of the big tech or Mac tech, which is the Mag 7, they are all users of the visa, and India is the biggest beneficiary for that.
Right. Let's leave business aside for a moment. I just want my panel to stay on because the issue of gun violence and Indian students getting killed is one of grave concern. Remember, Venk and Nag have kids in the US as well. 26-year-old Ravi Teja from Hyderabad, who was pursuing his MS in the US, was shot dead at a gas station in the Washington, D.C. area. Ravi is the latest victim in a long list of Indian students and others who have lost their lives to gun violence. Uma Sudhir has this very brief report. Let's listen into it before we get to the panel again.
So 26-year-old Ravi Teja had gone in 2022 to pursue his master's degree in the US, and he has completed his degree, and we are told that he was looking for a job and going on job trials as well, and he had in fact gone with a friend at this gas station in Washington DC. He was shot at and got injured and subsequently died as well. His family is in Hyderabad in the Chaitanya Puri locality, and of course heartbroken. He is the only son of his parents, and of course a lot of dreams that were riding on him, American dreams, the dollar dreams, and at this stage for them to get this news was very, very heartbreaking. Two things in this, because Indians comprise the maximum numbers of any nationality of students in the US. In fact, in 2023-24 is when India surpassed every other nation with 331,000 Indian students in the US that year, and maximum numbers in those happen to be Telugus, and therefore a lot of anxiety and concern among the families, among the parents who have sent their children to the US to study. And what I must also point out is that in the last 1 year, as many as 11 such deaths have happened, and 8 of them were unnatural deaths, and this one becoming the 9th such unnatural death. The police have not yet revealed what exactly may have led to this kind of encounter. What we do know is that a man of color is said to have shot and killed Ravi Teja.
Right, Nag, Venk, obviously these are disturbing news reports that come in from the US. This is one area of human concern in terms of how the American society is shaping up. Right, Nag, first to you.
Yeah, so I think if you look at it, the gun violence in general has gone up, right? I mean, one is across color, people of color, and also against other citizens as well. So I think in general that has gone up. But, my belief and what I hear from and what I also feel is in general, the racism has gone up. What it was 20 years ago and what it is today, I think there's a stark difference. And that is across the world now, not only in the US, but, you read the same kind of reports across the world where there is a lot of angst against, immigration and people of color who are migrated, and it's only going up, but outside of that, in general, gun violence has gone up. So, it's concerning, definitely. When I travel to US, I also talking to people, hear these things. So hopefully, over a time, these things will start to settle down, but definitely this is on the rise as we see it today.
Yeah.
Right.
Veer,
I just want to bring in Venk largely. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I think, I keep telling this, because I've lived in that country, in US for a long time. I think there are pockets of, prejudice and racism in the US, but I don't think it is across the board. There are some areas where there is, racism and those kind of stuff, because, Indians have done well, not just Indians, South Asians. So, but that being said, I think US is still a country where it welcomes immigrants to a large extent, right? So we cannot paint it with the same brush saying, there's going to be sporadic. Even one of my friends was, recently, he got hit with something, somebody hit him. So I feel that, we shouldn't paint a brush across on this. We should, look at the case on an individual basis. And I would think of all the countries in the world, I think
no, absolutely, absolutely. Your point is taken. Shrikant Iyer, the larger thing is also about people-to-people connection, what's happening in US society very quickly, ease of business, etc., etc. Those are also things that one watches out for very closely on how it's developing in US, especially in a city where, as I keep saying, people understand the Bay Area better than they understand Baitra and Pura.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, actually, I have some stake in this because I have one of my kids who's studying in New York. So even though I directly haven't lived there, I have definitely experienced the education system and this one there. To me, there are two things, right? One is you're obviously hearing of a lot of things in terms of mental wellness, or especially of the younger generation. They're subject to so many things, etc. And that combined with this policy of owning firearms in the US, I think these two, when it's combined together, it's a very dangerous combination. And I think that's what has been coming together, to my mind, for the last 10 odd years. And that is potentially dangerous. And I believe that some president, I hope Trump does it, acts quickly to actually curb, at least bring some method to the madness. Right now, I feel that it's just completely horrible.
Okay, we just have the last 10 seconds left. Nag, very quickly, as we see the Trump inauguration happening, what's the mood right now? Caution, optimism, or pessimism?
I think it is very difficult to say anything with Trump. I think it'll be a combination of all these things, because I think there'll be a lot of surprises.
Okay. Right. That's all we have time for on the show this evening. But thanks to all three of you for joining us here.